The chair that wasn't mine to give. Part 1. The museum steps. I should have known the day would go wrong when I couldn't find parking. It was a Saturday in late September, and the Metropolitan Natural History Museum was hosting their annual dinosaur exhibit opening. I'd been planning this visit for months, ever since Dr. Patricia Hammond, my former paleontology professor, had invited me to see her latest find before it opened to the public. A nearly complete Triceratops skeleton she'd discovered in Montana. My name is Adrian Cole. I'm 26 years old, and 6 months ago, a drunk driver ran a red light and changed my life forever. The accident left me with severe nerve damage in my left leg and chronic pain that made walking more than a few dozen steps nearly impossible. Hence the wheelchair I'd been using ever since. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not embarrassed. But I am tired of people treating me like I'm either invisible or helpless. And today, I was about to meet someone who thought I was both. The museum sits at the top of a grand staircase, 72 marble steps that I'd climbed hundreds of times as a student. Now, I took the accessible entrance around the side, a ramp that wound through a small garden before reaching a side door. It added an extra 5 minutes to the journey, but that was fine. I'd learned patience these past 6 months. Inside, the museum was already crowded despite being an hour before official opening. Press, donors, university faculty, people who'd paid or pulled strings to get early access. I wheeled through the main hall, past the towering Brachiosaurus skeleton that had fascinated me as a child, toward the new wing where Patricia's exhibit was housed. That's when I saw her. She was standing in the center of the hallway, blocking traffic, while a boy, maybe 9 or 10 years old, sat on the floor beside her, looking at his phone. Several people had to navigate around them, shooting annoyed glances that she either didn't notice or didn't care about. I tried to will past, but the hallway narrowed here, and with her standing in the middle and her son sprawled on the floor, there wasn't room. "Excuse me," I said politely. She looked up, mid-30s, wearing what I'd describe as expensive casual, designer jeans, a cashmere sweater, oversized sunglasses pushed up on her head despite being indoors. Her expression when she saw me was one of mild irritation, like I'd interrupted something important. "Could you move slightly?" I gestured at the narrow passage. "I just need to get through." She looked at me, then at my wheelchair, then back at me. Something shifted in her expression, a calculation I'd seen before but never quite gotten used to. "Actually," she said, "I have a question for you." "Okay," I said warily. "How much longer are you going to be using that?" She pointed at my wheelchair like it was a piece of equipment I'd rented. I blinked. "I'm sorry. The wheelchair. How much longer do you need it?" "Because my son Brandon is exhausted from walking around, and he really needs to sit down." I stared at her. Surely I'd misunderstood. "You want my wheelchair?" "Just for a little bit," she said, as if this were a completely reasonable request. "We've been walking for over an hour, and there are no benches anywhere. You look young and healthy otherwise. You can just stand for a while, can't you?" Brandon looked up from his phone briefly, then went back to scrolling. He didn't look particularly exhausted to me. He looked bored. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my voice level, "I use this wheelchair because I can't walk without severe pain. I'm not going to give it to your son." Her eyes narrowed. "I saw you stand up when you came in. At the entrance. To show them your ticket." She was right. I had stood, briefly, holding onto the counter. I could stand for short periods. But standing and walking were very different things, and explaining my medical history to a stranger wasn't something I was obligated to do. "I appreciate your concern," I said, though I didn't. "But I'm going to keep my wheelchair. There are benches near the cafe on the second floor if your son needs to rest." I started to wheel around her, but she stepped directly into my path. "You're being extremely selfish," she said. Her voice had gotten louder. People were starting to look. "He's a child. He has needs. You're an adult who can clearly walk. Just let him use the chair for 20 minutes. "No," I said firmly. "Please move. I'm not asking for much. You're asking me to give up my mobility aid so your son can sit down. That's absurd. Please move out of my way." Her face flushed red. "Fine. Be that way. But don't expect any help from me when you really need it." She finally stepped aside, pulling Brandon up roughly by the arm. He complained, "Mom, I wasn't done," but she ignored him. I wheeled past them quickly, my heart pounding. 6 months of using a wheelchair, and I'd never had someone actually ask me to give it up. Stare? Yes. Make assumptions? Constantly. But this was new. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Part 2. The Exhibit Hall. Patricia's exhibit was stunning. The Triceratops skeleton dominated the center of the room, mounted in a defensive posture with its massive frill raised and horns pointed forward. The bones were a warm amber color, beautifully preserved, and the information plaques around it detailed Patricia's 3-year excavation process. Adrian. Patricia spotted me from across the room and came over, her face lit up with excitement. She was in her 60s, with short silver hair and the perpetually enthusiastic energy of someone who'd never stopped loving her job. Dr. Hammond, I said, grinning. This is incredible. Isn't she? We're calling her Beatrice. Come on, I'll give you the private tour before the crowds get worse. For the next 40 minutes, I forgot about the woman in the hallway. Patricia walked me through every aspect of the dig, showing me preserved eggs they'd found nearby, explaining the unique features of this particular specimen's skull structure. It was exactly why I'd fallen in love with paleontology in the first place. We were looking at a display of Triceratops teeth when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Well, still hogging that chair, I see. I turned. The woman from the hallway had found me. Brandon was with her, now holding what looked like a museum map and an expensive-looking camera. Patricia looked between us, confused. Adrian, do you know this person? We had a brief interaction earlier, I said carefully. She asked to use my wheelchair. I declined. Patricia's expression went from confused to disapproving. She'd been my advocate when I first returned to school after the accident, helping me navigate the university's accessibility services. She had very little patience for people who didn't understand disability. I see, Patricia said coolly. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you not to harass my guests. The woman, I still didn't know her name, laughed. Not a friendly laugh. A dismissive one. Harass? I'm trying to teach him a lesson about sharing. My son needs to sit down, and your friend here has been parading around in that chair all day when he clearly doesn't need it. I have nerve damage, I said, my patience wearing thin. I use this chair because walking is extremely painful and difficult. That's not going to change because your son is tired. You walked earlier. I saw you. I stood for maybe 30 seconds. That's not the same as walking around a museum. Patricia stepped forward, positioning herself slightly between me and the woman. Ma'am, I'm Dr. Patricia Hammond, the curator of this exhibit. What Adrian does or doesn't do with his wheelchair is none of your business. I'm going to have to ask you to leave him alone and move along. The woman's face went from red to purple. Excuse me? Do you know who I am? My husband donated $15,000 to this museum. I don't care if your husband donated $15 million, Patricia said. You're harassing a disabled visitor. Leave. Now. For a moment, I thought the woman would escalate further. But she just made a disgusted sound, grabbed Brandon's hand, and stormed off toward another exhibit area. Are you okay? Patricia asked once she was gone. Yeah, I said, though my hands were shaking slightly. Thanks for that. Some people, Patricia muttered. Come on, let me show you the fossilized footprints we found. You'll love them. Part 3, the bathroom incident. An hour later, I needed to use the restroom. The accessible bathroom was on the first floor, near the main entrance. Patricia had gone to speak with some donors, so I was on my own. I wheeled down the hallway, through the crowded main hall, and found the bathroom without issue. The accessible stall was occupied, so I waited. A few minutes later, it opened and I went in. I was washing my hands when I heard raised voices outside. Then the bathroom door burst open. I know you're in here. It was her, the woman from before. You need to come out right now and give Brandon that chair. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, briefly wondering if I was hallucinating. Then I took a breath and wheeled toward the door. She was standing just outside, Brandon beside her looking uncomfortable. A museum security guard, a young guy who looked barely out of high school, stood a few feet away, looking confused. Ma'am, the guard was saying, you can't just follow people into the bathroom. He's been lying, she interrupted. He's been walking around all day pretending to need that wheelchair when my son is the one who actually needs to sit down. He stood up earlier, multiple times, and now he's in there probably standing to use the bathroom like a normal person. I wheeled out into the hallway. I'm right here. And yes, I can stand briefly to use the restroom. That doesn't mean I can walk around this museum. This is the third time I've asked you to leave me alone. The security guard looked at me. Sir, is this woman bothering you? Yes, I said firmly. She's been harassing me for the past 2 hours about my wheelchair. She wants me to give it to her son. The guard's confusion cleared. Ma'am, you need to leave this gentleman alone. I will not. She was practically shouting now. He's faking. He walked earlier. My son needs that chair. Your son, I said, my own voice rising, can sit on literally any bench in this building. There are benches everywhere. The gift shop has chairs. The cafe has tables. You have dozens of options. What you don't have is the right to my wheelchair. You're being selfish and ableist. I'm being ableist. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Lady, you're literally trying to take a mobility aid from a disabled person. Do you hear yourself? Brandon tugged on his mother's sleeve. Mom, can we please just go? This is embarrassing. Be quiet, Brandon. She shook off his hand. Mommy is handling this. The security guard pulled out his radio. I'm going to need backup at the first floor restrooms. We have a situation. Situation? The woman looked offended. I'm not a situation. He is. He's abusing the system and taking resources from people who actually need them. I actually need this, I said. My voice came out harder than I intended. I need it because 6 months ago a drunk driver crashed into my car and destroyed the nerves in my leg. I need it because without it, I'm in constant, severe pain. I need it because I have the right to access public spaces just like everyone else. What I don't need is you making assumptions about my body based on 30 seconds of observation. For the first time, she seemed slightly uncertain. Well, you could have said that from the beginning. I shouldn't have to tell you my medical history to justify using a wheelchair. That's not how this works. 2 more security guards arrived, both older and more experienced looking. The original guard quickly filled them in. One of the new guards, a woman in her 40s, turned to the woman. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the museum. What? No. I have tickets. My husband is a donor. You've been harassing another visitor multiple times despite being asked to stop. That's grounds for removal. Please gather your belongings and come with us. This is discrimination. I'm going to sue. I'm going to call my lawyer. That's your right, ma'am. But you need to leave now. You can do so voluntarily with us, or we can call the city police. Your choice. Brandon was crying now, quiet tears running down his face while his mother continued to argue. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. He needs to give Brandon the chair first, she insisted. Then I'll leave. Ma'am, just for 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking. No, I shouted. I couldn't help it. For the last time, and oh, this is my wheelchair. Mine. You cannot have it. Your son cannot have it. I am not giving it to anyone. Is that clear enough? The museum had gone quiet. We'd attracted a crowd. Dozens of people were staring. The woman looked around at all the faces, all the people clearly not on her side, and something in her broke. Fine, she screamed. Fine. Keep your stupid chair. I hope you're happy that you made a child suffer. She grabbed Brandon's hand and stomped toward the exit, the security guards following closely behind. The crowd slowly dispersed. The female security guard came over to me. I'm really sorry about that, sir. Are you okay? Yeah, I said. My hands were shaking again. I'm fine. Thank you for handling it. Can I get you anything? Water? A quiet place to sit for a minute. I'm good. I think I'm just going to head out, actually. I've had enough museum for today. She nodded sympathetically. I understand. Again, I'm sorry this happened. We'll be filing a report, and that woman won't be allowed back. Part 4. The parking lot. I made it to the parking lot before the adrenaline wore off and the shaking got worse. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, just breathing, trying to calm down. My phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. Adrian, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? I texted back. Yeah. Heading home. Thanks for the tour. The exhibit was amazing. The exhibit can wait. Do you need me to drive you home? I'm okay. Promise. Just need some quiet. Call me if you need anything. And Adrian, you handled that with more grace than she deserved. I smiled despite everything. Put my phone away. Started the car. That's when I saw her. She was standing by a black SUV 3 spaces down, loading bags into the trunk. Brandon was sitting in the back seat, still looking miserable. I should have just left. Should have driven away and forgotten about it. But something made me roll down my window. Hey, I called out. She turned, saw me, and her face went hard again. I just want to say something, I continued. I don't know what's going on in your life. I don't know if you're stressed or overwhelmed or whatever. But your son didn't need my wheelchair today. He needed his mother to be reasonable. He needed you to say, I know you're tired. Buddy, let's find a bench, instead of trying to take something from a stranger that you had no right to take. I was trying to take care of my child. You were trying to take the easy way out, I interrupted. And you're teaching your son that it's okay to take things from disabled people if it's convenient. Do you realize how messed up that is? She stared at me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said, quietly, he has ADHD. He gets overwhelmed in crowds. Today was really hard for him. I softened slightly. I'm sorry. That sounds difficult. But that doesn't give you the right to my wheelchair. If he was having a hard time, there were other solutions. Take breaks. Leave early. Find quiet spaces. But demanding someone's mobility aid? That's never okay. She looked tired suddenly. I didn't think it would be a big deal. You're young. You looked fine. I am fine. With my wheelchair. Without it, I'm not. That's what you're not understanding. She looked at Brandon in the back seat, then back at me. I'm sorry. I was out of line. Yeah, you were. Will you accept my apology? I thought about it. About the past 3 hours. About the humiliation of having to defend my existence multiple times. About the shaking in my hands that still hadn't completely stopped. I accept that you're apologizing, I said. But I'm not going to say it's okay. Because it wasn't. What you did today was ableist and wrong. And I hope you think about it before you make assumptions about someone else's disability. She nodded slowly. Didn't argue. Just nodded. I hope your son feels better, I said. And I meant it. I rolled up my window and drove away. Part 5, the follow-up. 3 days later, I got an email. The subject line was Incident at Museum, Follow-up, and it was from the museum's Director of Visitor Services. Dear Mr. Cole, I'm writing to follow up on the incident that occurred during your visit on Saturday. First, please allow me to extend my sincerest apologies for what you experienced. No visitor to our museum should ever be subjected to harassment, particularly regarding accessibility needs. After reviewing security footage and speaking with witnesses, we have taken the following actions. The individual in question has been banned from our facility indefinitely. All security staff will be receiving additional training on disability rights and proper intervention procedures. We will be increasing visible security presence during high-traffic events. Additionally, we would like to offer you a 1-year premium membership to the museum, which includes guest passes and early access to all new exhibits. Dr. Hammond has also requested that we extend an invitation for you to attend her private lecture series on vertebrate paleontology next month. Please don't hesitate to contact me if there's anything else we can do to make this right. Sincerely, Margaret Chun, Director of Visitor Services. I stared at the email for a long time. The museum didn't have to do any of this. They'd already handled the situation. The woman was removed. It was over. But they were going further, making sure it wouldn't happen again. Not just to me, but to anyone else. I replied, Ms. Chun, thank you for your email and for taking this situation seriously. I appreciate the steps you're taking to improve accessibility awareness among your staff. I would be honored to accept the membership and attend Dr. Hammond's lecture series. And for what it's worth, your security team handled the situation professionally and with compassion. Please pass along my thanks. Sincerely, Adrian Cole. Part 6, the lecture. 6 weeks later, I was back at the museum. Patricia's lecture series was held in a small auditorium on the 3rd floor. About 50 people attended, mostly graduate students, a few professors, some paleontology enthusiasts. I wheeled in early, claiming a space in the accessible seating area. Chatted with some of Patricia's other former students. Felt, for the first time in weeks, like just another person enjoying an academic talk. Patricia's lecture was on predator-prey relationships in the late Cretaceous. She was animated, passionate, using the Triceratops skeleton as her primary example. She talked about the healed injuries they'd found on the bones, evidence of surviving multiple attacks from tyrannosaurs. This animal, she said, gesturing at the projection of Beatrice's skeleton, didn't just survive. She thrived. Despite multiple traumatic encounters, she lived to old age. We can see that in the bone density, the healed injuries, the wear patterns on her teeth. She adapted. She persisted. I thought about that a lot in the days that followed. About adaptation. About persistence. About surviving traumatic encounters and still showing up. Epilogue, 6 months later. I'm writing this from my new office at the university's paleontology department. After Patricia's lecture series, she offered me a research assistant position working on the Triceratops project. I accepted. It's part-time, fits around my medical appointments, and allows me to work from home when needed. I still use my wheelchair. I probably always will. Some days are better than others, pain-wise, but the chair gives me freedom. It lets me do things I couldn't otherwise do. I've had other encounters since the museum incident. Some people are curious and kind. Others are ignorant. A few have been outright hostile. But I've learned something important. My disability doesn't diminish my worth. My wheelchair doesn't make me less capable. And I don't owe anyone an explanation for existing in public spaces. The woman from the museum, I found out later her name was Denise, sent me a letter about 2 months after the incident. It arrived at the museum, and Patricia forwarded it to me. It was brief. Mr. Cole, I've thought about our encounter many times since that day. I was wrong. Not just wrong to ask for your wheelchair, but wrong in my entire approach and understanding of disability. I've been doing research and reading accounts from disabled people about their experiences. I'm ashamed of how I acted. My stress and my son's struggles were never an excuse to treat you that way. I'm writing this not because I expect forgiveness, but because I wanted you to know that your words made an impact. I'm trying to do better. I hope you're well. Denise Morrison. I didn't respond to the letter. I didn't feel like I needed to, but I kept it. Not as a trophy or a reminder of conflict, but as evidence that sometimes, not always, but sometimes, people can learn. They can grow. They can change their perspectives if they're willing to listen. And that's worth something. I still visit Beatrice regularly. The Triceratops skeleton that survived multiple attacks and lived to old age. Every time I see her, I think about resilience, about adaptation, about the strength it takes not just to survive trauma, but to keep living fully afterward. My wheelchair isn't a limitation. It's a tool, one that gives me access to the world, to museums, to fossil exhibits, to work I love. And no one, no matter how tired their child is, no matter how convenient it would be, gets to take that away from me.